What up, world? It's your man, Melvin Taylor. You are here for another episode of the Alternative Road Podcast. I just want to thank you for being able to tune in to this show. Please make sure that you not only subscribe, follow, so that way you can get more of these episodes, but make sure to rate the show down below if you do enjoy it, so that way we can have it pop up and more people will be able to listen to it and they can know what they're getting themselves into. So for all of you that don't know what the Alternative Road Podcast is, it basically began as an extension of my radio show, The Alternative with Melvin Taylor, II. Now, on my radio show, I have something called The Alternative Road, where I speak with guests that I have that come on and they tell me about what it is they want to do, why it is they want to do it. Basically, we're trying to find out what is their version of success, right? And I know that success looks different for everybody. So that's why when I bring these people on, I want to ask them what are the specifics that brought them to that path, what's the happiness that they learned on there, and also, and most importantly, what is advice that they can give to other people who are also looking for their version of success and happiness. So with that being said, man, please sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Remember, stay blessed, stay favored, always stay tailored. If you got a dream, see it through, and I'll see you after this episode. Peace and love.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Blakk, live and direct, and you're listening to the Alternative Road Podcast.
What up, world? It's your man, Melvin Taylor. We're back for another episode of the Alternative Road Podcast. Remember, you can find us everywhere on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. Like I said the other day, the only thing that you can't find me on is anything that has 6ix9ine's name on it, because I'm not doing any of that mess right now. But I'm so glad to be back here on the show with you guys right now, man. You know, we still can't be in the studio, but even with that going on, again, you can find us at all those places and on the YouTube channel, Melvin Taylor. I'm excited because we got a very special guest in the building today. Now, this man is from way, way out west. And we're going to get into a little bit of the quarantine situation because a lot of that deals with where he is. But for right now, he's been telling everybody to make sure that they take your time. I know everybody's rushing to get back to what's going on. Everybody wants to get back to normal, even though we're not going to necessarily have a regular normal that we go back to. But right now, this man is telling us all to take your time. And that also has a message that I want to come across and talk to you guys a little bit about later on. My man, Blakk Soul. Blakk, how you doing today, man?
Man, blessed, man. I can't complain too much. How are you?
I'm wonderful, man. I'm wonderful. Thank you for asking me, man. I appreciate that. So just to kind of get over into everything, obviously we got to start with the quarantine situation because that's what everybody is going through right now. Now, you're from Tacoma, Washington, bro. You were in Washington where the first cases and everything happened. So I have to ask you, man, what were you thinking when all this started? Where were you? Like, just take us through it.
I was actually back home at the time. I'm in LA right now, but I was back home at the time when they announced the first case. Now, they announced the first case in Kirkland, which is probably like 45 minutes north of me. Mm-hmm. But still, it's close enough to where you kind of raise an eyebrow like,
Right.
But I'm not gonna lie. Even I think I was one of those people initially that didn't panic. I didn't think it was going to be as big of a deal as it has become. Mm-hmm. But when the NBA canceled its season, I knew it was really real.
Right.
Because big corporations like that aren't just going to impact their bottom line for anything if it's not serious. So when that started happening, I was like, oh no, this is a serious thing. And then friends of mine started actually losing family members to it. And, once it kind of shows up in your neighborhood, it's like, all right, it gives you a different perspective on it.
Exactly. Well, man, I'm glad that you were safe and that you're out of Washington right now, even though we kind of have a fluctuating situation where it seems as if the numbers are beginning to dwindle. We still need everybody to stay inside and to, be able to just take every precaution to be safe. So with that, I'm also asking, your family okay, just to make sure we cover that too?
Yes, they are, man. I'm thankful, man. We're blessed.
Okay, good. Glad to hear that. Now, before we get into Take Your Time and the album that we're going to begin about today, I do want to ask you, and speaking of family, is your family a musical family? Has it always been a musical family? Was it something that you picked up while you were doing when you're younger? Because it takes a lot for somebody to say, you know what, one day I want to grow up and be a musician due to the different pathways that everybody takes to be able to make that dream come true. And so far, you've not just been successful, but very successful at being able to do that. So can you just describe to us, when did all this begin for you?
Yeah, no, I definitely don't come from a music family, which is funny. My mom always used to say, well, I don't know where you get this voice from, man. It has to be from God. She used to, have me singing in the church early on when I was a kid. But yeah, for the most part, I didn't even take interest in pursuing a career in music until probably college. It used to be just something I would do around the homies just to facilitate the vibes, when our lady friends and stuff was around. But I think my friends actually saw it more as a career for me than I did up until college. I was playing sports, football, basketball, and track. And, ball is life at the time when you're in it. But then, once you reach to a certain level and it doesn't, cross over and, into the pros like you would like, I had to figure out what was something I felt like I was naturally talented at and that I could really work at to build it up. And that's, I think, when I was like, okay, let's see what this music is talking about.
Got it. Now, you just gave us a lot of game right there, so we can go ahead and dive back into that and then unpack all of this and then come back all the way forward. So you used to sing in church, first of all. Do you remember what the first few songs were that you were singing in church? Or do you remember any big song that you sung back then in church?
I remember the song that used to always pull all the grandmas and aunties was I Won't Complain.
Hey, okay. I feel you.
Yeah, but to be honest, my first time singing in the church as a kid was a horrific experience for me.
Because hold on.
So my mom is one of the most God-fearing women I know, and she just loves anything that involves praising the Lord, right? So we had just moved into town and started going to a new church, and obviously the kids up there, have rehearsed. They know these songs. All she saw was kids up there singing and was like, yeah, go ahead up there with the kids.
She set you up, bro.
Right. So I was like, wait, hold on. I don't think that's how this works.
Right.
And she's like, mind you, my mom is from Ghana as well. So she's like, yeah, go on up there with the kids.
Yeah, she's like, go and do it, little boy.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't think this is how it works. So I'm up there kind of looking around confused. People are looking at me confused. And then, as a child, I'm just like, I'll try to just get quiet and don't say anything. I'm just looking like wide-eyed, like, why am I here? So that was actually my first introduction to having to get up there. And then eventually, she did the due process thing, and they let me into the children's choir. I learned some of the songs. And but yeah, my first initial experience, I was like, oh no, this isn't it.
I can imagine just being wide-eyed, like, Mama, I don't know none of these people up here. You
right,
just make me go do this? Like, come on.
Got here.
Right. Like, I'm lit. This is our first time here. Don't embarrass me like this, Mom. But I feel you on that one. Okay. Yeah. And before I do want to hop over into you talking about when you began to take interest into it. Now, in that time between you singing in the church, being in high school, and before you got to college, did you ever have a moment then where you even briefly considered if it was something that you would do, or was it just like I play music all around, all the time in the house, like sing in the shower, but never really taking it that serious?
That's exactly what it was. I would sing all the time, so that's where people around me would identify like that it could be potentially something career-wise, but I still just never really had an interest in pursuing a career field in music at that time. Even my friend who actually produced on the album Take Your Time, he produced on Help and the Hurt People record. I actually went to high school with him, and he was pushing for me to have a career in music then because, he's a musician. He was playing in a band. And even to start off with, wanted to just do some talent show type stuff. And it really wasn't until college, though, that I was like, okay, let's see what it's about. And being that I didn't have any musical people in my family, like I really had to step outside of my comfort zone and start popping out to open mics and, tastemaker events to try to make my way into that music community so I could kind of figure out how to navigate.
Okay. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and I understand that. Well, we're going to come back to more about that once we get into the album, but thank you for that so far. Now I do want to ask you, when you got to college and began to take it serious, because I know with some musicians sometimes it'd be like, man, look, there was this girl, and then after that, I was like, maybe I might be able to do this. So for you, was it anything like that? Was it just like a flip of a switch? Like, when was that first moment where you were like, wait a minute, like all these people might have been on to something this whole time for me?
I think it was more a flip of a switch. So in the flip of a switch, when I actually did my first studio session, like I actually tried to record on record, I didn't know what I was doing, obviously, and this was kind of like just before the do-it-yourself era, so you still had to find a studio, pay for studio time, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And what I didn't like about it is I'm like, okay, I didn't put this money away, I done paid for this session, and the song didn't come out the way that I wanted. But the engineer's job wasn't to write the song for me, it was just to record me. So then I was like, oh, okay, so this is going to take some work. And I think just the challenge of it all, because I was very competitive, so I think just the challenge of not being good at something now and like having to relearn it and figure out how to maximize my time and dollar is what really made me take it serious. And that's when, prepping before sessions came into play, making sure I had the song already written, figuring out the melodies that I needed when I was in there and how to do so at a quicker pace. And all the stuff I felt like, really contributes to how I work now.
Okay. Understandable. Completely understandable. Now, you also said that you played sports as well growing up, and that was another reason why you think that you may not have taken it as serious early on, specifically basketball, football, and track. So I got to ask you, man, is Russell Wilson going to bring us to, I was going to say the Seahawks, the Supersonics back at some point in time? Like, are we going to, because he already buying everything else, and I'm like, as soon as he retires, he going to get a part of the Seahawks. Is he going, him and Amazon going to do this thing? Like, what's good, bro? You out there, to see.
Man, I hope so, man, because, we've been down ever since they took the Sonics away. And then it was like, when the Seahawks had their run, the town was going crazy. And in Seattle, it's 45 minutes up north, but it's like the hometown team. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, man, I hope so. I definitely hope so, man. You never know. There's been a bunch of people saying that they're going to help bring the Sonics back, but it just doesn't seem to happen. I don't know what's missing in the finalizing of it all.
No, I feel you for sure. We'll put it this way. If the New Orleans Pelicans probably lose another star player, like is Zion leave in 5 years, I think they're going to have to relocate that team somewhere. So Seattle might be first up. We'll see how all that goes. But with you playing sports, tell us, man, what kind of player was you on the hoop court? What position did you play in football? And then specifically, I would love to know, what did you run in track? Because I did all the same things in college as well.
Oh, dope. Okay, yeah. Basketball, I was a shooting guard. Football, I was an outside linebacker. I played corner too. And then track, I ran the 100, 400, and the 800.
Hey, okay.
Yeah.
I feel you. I was on the 400, the 200, then I did the hurdles after that. I couldn't do the straight 100 sprint. I was like, nah, they too quick for me, but I can do these hurdles.
Right. Yeah, man, when I got to college, man, them cats was fast.
Dude, yeah, man. It's a whole nother world. Like, you in high school, you like, all right, like, I'm doing fine. You get to college, and I'm like, fam, they are smoking. You ain't going to the Olympics?
Right. That's why I felt like I was like, oh, no, all of you guys are training for the Olympics. Oh, okay, because y'all are fast. I thought I was kind of fast, but y'all are fast.
Man, it always be that rude awakening for sure. It's like, man, how we going to make this happen?
Yeah.
So I gotta ask you too, with the NBA canceling the season, and obviously, as you said, Seattle doesn't have its own team right now. Who were you supporting in the NBA? We already talked about the Seahawks, since that's kind of like the hometown team, but who is your team in the league?
I don't even know if I really had a team. I'm more like a player supporter. I was a LeBron fan, so when LeBron was going, I was rocking.
Okay, which fits for me because I'm a Lakers fan. So then, I mean, we work.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Then. So when the season back up, we can text and be like, hey, you see this bullshit the refs doing? Okay, cool.
Absolutely.
Got it. All right, bet. Now, let's get into the big thing overall here. We're here to talk about Take Your Time. And specifically, I would love to know, why is it that you named this album Take Your Time?
Man, it just made the most sense. I actually didn't name it until the very, very end, because during the whole process, I was trying to think of a cool name for all the records, and I just couldn't think of one that I liked or that stuck with me. And then I think right at the end, I was having a conversation with a homegirl of mine, and she was like, this is the type of music for people that like to take their time. And I was like, you know what? Aha. And it was like that epiphany moment I had. And then it was like, that's perfect, because it took me a little bit. It took me about a year to get everything done, just in living with records for a little bit, getting rid of records, playing with the sequencing of it all. Like, I was very hands-on with this project, so it took me a little bit of time. I did all the mixing and mastering. I wrote all my parts, wrote one of the features, and did all the music sequencing. So it was a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like it, man. You really were like all hands on this project, and it's just very, at least from what I know in the music business, and nowadays especially, to be able to have that ability to do so and for it to turn out as good as it did, more power to you, man, because this is a great job that you did.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. So at the end, when I heard her say that, I said, that's perfect. That's the name of the project.
Okay, great. Now I would like to hop into some of the features that you got, and now we can tie this back to earlier when we were talking about your homie from high school, because we got to talk about the big one for me, because I was a Slaughterhouse guy growing up. So you got Joel Ortiz on the album. How did that situation work out?
So that actually worked out at the beginning of my partnership with Mello. So my boy Cuddy Fresh and my boy from high school, Jerson, they were the ones that Cuddy produced most of the beat and Jerson played the guitar on it. Excuse me. I had been sitting with the beat for a second. I just finished it up, doing my verse and the hook. And at that time, I had just finished up my partnership with Mello, and the owner had connected me with Joel because Joel was working on his Monday album at the time. And there was a song that he needed the hook on. And so I did the hook, sent it back, and he loved it. And I was like, well, since we're here, I'm actually trying to finish up my project as well. So if you wouldn't mind blessing up this joint with a verse, man, I think it would be dope. And he sure did, man, and sent me back a fire verse, and the rest was history after that.
Oh, that's amazing, man. That's what's up.
Yeah.
Now, we covered the Help feature. Can we talk about Act Out featuring Nana?
Yeah, that was awesome. Some West Coast flavor. Shout out to the producer Oasis. He's from Europe. I think Paris maybe. And he had just reached out to me on Instagram because I had worked with his friend, a producer named The Astronaut. We had done some work. Him, I, and rapper Big Pooh, who's also my manager. And when I heard the record, like, it just had so much West Coast flavor. And my boy Nana, he was born and raised in L.A., so it just made sense. And I was actually in L.A. at the time, so I actually recorded it, and it just came out crazy. Okay.
Dope. Up next, we got excuse me. I want to make sure I type that correctly. Rewind featuring them all. I was like, yo, what is autocorrect doing to me as I'm taking notes? I'm like, bro, you finna flip me all the way crazy. There we go.
Yeah, Rewind, man. Rewind is a special record to me. My boy Drew's that dude produced that. He's known for the Trey Songz records, the Eric Bellinger records, the Mac Miller records. Like, very talented and probably one of my favorite R&B producers. He's just so versatile in all the things that he can do. But yeah, he sent that record over, and interestingly enough, I'm not quite sure how she heard of me, but Amal reached out to me via Instagram as well.
Word.
Do some writing. I think because I was campaigning a lot about wanting to work with women artists in terms of some collaborative work. And she ended up coming to LA. And so I ended up engineering a session for her. And in engineering, it was just discussions of looking for dope writers. And so my boy Jay Pounds, who was producing at the time, he was like, yeah, don't let him sit there and just be quiet. He got a bunch of records to play. And so she asked me to press play. I pressed play on a bunch of records, and man, she was blown away. And the next thing you know, we linked up for the session, and that was one of the first records we did. It was cool because Drew said he had wanted to work with her, and so I was like in the midst of talking to her, like, yeah, can you send me a pack real quick? Like, we're in session right now, and he sent it over like that. And
wow.
It was like the second song out of the batch that I pulled out, and we just went straight into it, bro, and it came out crazy. And I was like, sometimes when the chemistry is just flowing right, like, you just got to roll with it, and it showed on that record.
It definitely did, man. That's a great story. I'm glad that it worked out that way. Shoot, I'm glad your homie told you to speak up then.
Oh, yeah. Because, I'm bad with that sometimes. Like, because I do so many things, I don't always try to intermingle what I can provide, like, just out of courtesy. So, like, if I'm hired to engineer for this session, I'm not trying to pitch my records. You know what I mean?
I get that.
Yeah, shout out to my boy, though, because, he made sure that I didn't just sit quiet, and that turned into a wonderful opportunity. So,
all right, fact. Shout out to your boy for sure. Definitely got to make sure to throw that out there. Cause can you tell me what would? And I know I always get in trouble with artists about this question because they like, man, it's like choosing my kids. Which songs stand out to you the most on Take Your Time, or if it helps you to ask it, if it helps for me to ask it this way, if somebody said, Blakk, can you give me 3 songs from Take Your Time that would help best to describe you, which 3 would those songs be, and why those 3?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay. I think Free, Help, and Free, Help, and I'm gonna go with that third one's tough.
You got something you can choose from. That's why I'm like, I ain't gonna say nothing. See what he come up with.
See what he come up with. Yeah, I'm over here looking at the track list now. Like, okay, Free, Help, and I'm gonna say Smoke and Chill.
I knew you was gonna say that one. Okay, talk to us about that one. Talk to us. In my head, I was like, "Why he say Smoke and Chill? Don't say nothing. Don't say nothing."
Yeah, so Smoke and Chill because really, man, I'll be chilling. I'm a homebody. I don't do too much. Like, I'm like a socializing introvert, if that makes any sense. Like, if I'm out, like if I gotta be out, like I'm not just gonna be, in the corner to myself, but I would prefer to be at the crib, just chilling, smoking, creating, in my little vibe.
Okay. Dope.
Yeah,
in my head, I just knew that he was going to pick that one. I'm over here looking at the track list like, which one is he going? This mug going to say Smoke and Chill, bro. I already see it. I know what's going to happen. Okay, for sure. Can I ask you, when you're putting together your album, was it a specific purpose that you had for picking Take Your Time to start off the album, or was it like, you know what, since it's the title track, I just want to begin it that way, or was there any particular order that you originally had for the album?
It was, I switched the order up a bunch of times, and that wasn't even the original name for the record.
Really?
Yeah. It was. I had a different name, more so a placeholder for it. But then once I actually figured out the name for the album, it made the most sense at the beginning because I was like, yeah, Take Your Time is. And that's another thing now. I think I just had that epiphany as we're talking now. I didn't even think to call it Take Your Time, and I said Take Your Time in the song. Yeah. But then after that, it just made the most sense to put it as the opening record. It wasn't like up tempo. Up tempo was a little bit slower than Act Out, but I felt like it was a good lead in to get people prepped. I think I try to imagine the sequencing in context with a live show.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how I went about trying to sequence the order.
Okay. Perfect. I can understand that. So then, does that mean when we get our next live show, are we going? How do I even want to ask this question? When we do get our live show, is everything going to be in the same track listing that we have here, or would it be like a mix of things you already have put out before? Like, how does your typical live shows really work when it comes to that?
I'll probably mix it up. I think the live show is a lot on kind of gauging the energy of the crowd. Mm-hmm. And so you may have like a set list to go off of, and I think that's sometimes the beautiful part about having a live band, because I rock with a band, is if the energy shifts in an unexpected way, you can kind of go off the cuff and, get the people back and, just doing some other stuff and then get back to the lineup. Okay.
Yeah. I feel you. Now, can you tell us a little bit about when you first heard about Mello and when that became a situation for you to be able to begin working with?
So I first heard about Mello when my manager, Big Pooh, had a partnership with them for 2 albums. He released Words, Paint Pictures, and Home Sweet Home.
Hold on, I'm sorry. You just dropped something. Do you want to pick it up? You just said Big Pooh. I just want to be sure that you just name dropping over here.
Yeah, Big Pooh from Little Brother. Yeah, that's my dog, man. And I worked on both of those projects with him, and I think that's how I even got on the owner of Mello's radar.
Gotcha.
And so Pooh had hit me up one day, and he said, the owner was asking, was curious if you had a situation of your own already. And I was like, nah, man, I'm still fully independent. And he was like, well, he's interested in, trying to support your campaign. And then, we worked out the particulars, and here we are, man, with the debut album, Take Your Time. And I really appreciate how much they trust my creative direction and support me fully. Like, he hasn't even tried to change anything that I'm doing. Like, it's really just been support 100%.
That's amazing, because from the stories that I'm sure you've heard and that I've heard, it doesn't always work out like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I was like, man, I don't know. It feeling like it's going too good, and but I'm thankful. Everything has been solid so far, man. I'm really blessed.
So how did you first get on Big Pooh's radar?
So that happened back in 2011. Mm-hmm. I had just linked up with my boy Cuddy, who was a part of the production group The Business at the time. And, they were doing a bunch of crazy records, and I was doing some demo references for him, trying to help sell songs.
Gotcha.
And so, he got, a cool little catalog of songs we had worked on and went to play them at a conference in New York. At this conference happened to be Big Doe, who was Pooh's manager at the time. And he heard the records that I was on referencing, went back to Big Pooh. I was like, yo, there's this kid out of Tacoma I heard. I think it's worth, checking him out and working with. Pooh was working on this Dirty Pretty Things album at the time. And the crazy part was, man, now I think about it, the social media has helped me out a lot in terms of collaborative work. Mm-hmm. He reached out to me via Twitter. And I was like, this can't be the real Big Pooh. Because at the time, I was a fan. I was a Little Brother fan. So I was well aware of who he was. But I'm like, he's not reaching me for real. Yeah. And I had no idea about the whole conference until later. So it appeared random to me. I was like, oh, what? And so then he DM'd me his number, called me, and then we chopped it up about the record, and I'm like, oh, this is really real. That's crazy. Knocked out the song, and then 3 or 4 months later, he had hit me back asking for my, PRO information and all that. And what I ended up learning later about that, maybe a year or two later, was he had never actually heard my voice before getting on the record.
Wow.
So he was literally going off the strength of, you know, his friendship with Doe, and that Doe wouldn't suggest anybody that wasn't, you know, where he was like, so for all I know, you could have been terrible.
Wow.
He said, so I didn't really know what to expect back when I got it, but he was like, you killed it. So then we've been rocking ever since.
That's amazing. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You really got to trust the homie to be able to have.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, even out of curiosity, you didn't even check, you know, to see what I have. That's crazy. I said, man, that's love, though.
No, facts for sure, man. So now I gotta hop back to a question I meant to ask you previously, but now something that we can get into real quick. The art cover for Take Your Time. What inspired that? I know obviously we have the clock, so obviously with the time, but everything else around it, like with the lottery ticket, the regular ticket, the dice, the flowers, the plant. Like, can you just tell us what inspired all of that?
Shout out, man, to the graphic designer Gustavo Soto, man. I think he did a crazy job putting into context what I was explaining about the meaning behind the album. And I think they're all references to time, they're references to the journey, the struggle, you know, embracing that struggle to be able to get to this part, you know, to release to the world. It doesn't always look pretty like people think it does once, you know, they see the end product. It's a lot of behind the scene things, a lot of bumps in the road that go into the process of making an album. And I think that's what I wanted, what was on the cover to personify. Understandable. Now, a question that I normally ask people in studio that I would love to ask you here today, seeing as we touched on all these topics so far. Do you believe that you have found what your purpose is going to be with creating music? I do. I really do. And that's the thing. I felt like I was good at a lot of things. Earlier, I was really good in school. Like, I was really good at all the jobs that I was doing because I worked quite a few jobs, but I never felt fulfilled. And it's crazy. Music, even though music never even really paid me, like, up until this point, like my jobs did, music always had me fulfilled. Like, it was always a release therapy for me. And they say, like, if you would do something, you know, for no money, it's probably what you should be doing.
Right.
And, I mean, whether I made, you know, all the money in the world or none at all, like, I'd probably still be creating music just because it gives me that peace.
Amazing. Okay. And where do you ultimately want to go with music? Like, eventually, where do you see yourself? Some people say that they see themselves as like, yo, I'm going to win multiple Grammys one day. Other people say they want to be a lot more influential and be able to use that to give back. Where do you ultimately see yourself?
Man, I mean, I'd be lying if I said the awards, you know, wasn't a goal of mine. It would be nice to win awards for my craft, but I think most importantly to me is legacy. Like, I had a hard time navigating the music world, a lot of trial and error, you know, not having come from a music family. And I would love to, like, create avenues for up-and-coming artists to be informed so they don't have to try to reinvent the wheel. You know what I mean? Especially in my neighborhood, I come from a small town where there's, you know, it's not really a music industry there. Seattle's more primarily known for rock and roll, so they have some outlets there. But in terms of like R&B, soul, hip hop, there isn't any infrastructure. So I'd love to, you know, when it's all said and done, establish an infrastructure there that, you know, up-and-coming artists can learn about music business. They can learn about publishing. They can learn about royalties. They can learn how to navigate the independent world and establish leverage so that when they get into a major situation, it makes sense. I think that's something I'm very passionate about, and that's probably on my mind. That would probably serve my soul better than any award.
Perfect. Now, I have two more questions that I definitely want to get into in a second. But it was something that you just said about Seattle and rock and roll that prompts me to ask this question now. And given where we are, and given the news that we got today / last night, we heard that not only did Andre Harrell, the founder of Uptown Records, pass, but also Little Richard passed as well this morning. And I'm just, you know, we just love your quick thoughts if you have any. If not, that's perfectly fine. On just, you know, the current situation that we're living in right now. We're losing legends such as that.
Man, it just feels like 2020 won't let up. I literally just right before we, you know, began the interview, I just scrolled Instagram and saw that Little Richard had passed as well, because I hadn't heard about it. But it's just been heavy, you know. And I think it's the world right now is really just showing us how less important material things are, and how more important, you know, loving on our loved ones, hugging our loved ones a little bit tighter, and paying more attention to all the things that really matter all right now. Because, you know, we all get caught up in the hustle and bustle of our careers. You know, I'm no different. There was a year I missed all the holidays. I didn't even go back home, and just I was so focused on trying to achieve a certain thing out here, you know, with the music. And then I had to take a step back. I actually had my old AAU basketball coach cussed me out about it. And like, I had to really realize, like, you know, he's right. This stuff is cool, but it's like, you got to always pay attention to the things that matter the most.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's family, and that's, you know, your loved ones. And with all these losses we keep taking, man, I think those are just constant reminders of it.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for that, man. I just figured, you know, given all the news and everything's going on, might as well ask that question, because I know that that's the entire community right now is really feeling at this point. Now, I wanted to ask you, what advice do you have for people coming up behind you? As you just said when talking about where you want to go with music, that you did have a hard road getting to where it is that you are today. If somebody that's listening to this, or somebody that's coming up after you and that wants to learn more about, you know, how it is that you got there, or some things that they should know when taking their own pathway, their own alternative road to get there, what advice do you have for them?
I would say, learn the music business, learn the ebbs and flows, understand the infrastructure of music, because it's going to guide you along your creative process and how to maximize your creative process. I think it's just human nature that we get so caught up in the art of it, we kind of don't give as much attention to the business side as we need to, which is how a lot of up-and-coming young artists end up getting into long-term situations that, if they were more informed, they probably wouldn't have agreed to.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to understand the music business side of everything, understand the marketing side of everything, and then it can kind of help your creative process, because now you're creating with a understanding that, okay, once the final product's done, like, that's not it. You know what I'm saying? Like, once the baby is made, like, I have to raise the child. So that would be my advice. Perfect. Now, I don't want to keep you too long, so I only got a couple more things that I do want to ask you. We got to run through this list of people that you've been able to work with so far, man, because this is absolutely mind-blowing. And I do want to say also congratulations on the platinum plaque as well, because that is amazing. Oh, thank you.
For sure. Now, can you tell us, what was it like working with Playboi Carti?
So I didn't actually get to work in the studio with Playboi Carti. That placement came from my work with Jake One.
Dope.
Jake One and Southside co-produced that record, and they sampled my voice for the record. So like the lead melody in that Kelly K voice, is a sample from my voice. I put together. I worked with Jake One and put together like some harmony samples, and they were able to flip it and made the joint, and that's how I got the placement as a part of the record.
So how does it feel, like, knowing that your voice is, like, being sampled and used on stuff? I'm sure that's a completely different, like, damn, like, really, y'all did that? Like, that's crazy. Yeah, it feels crazy, like, honestly, because, like, you know, when you think of samples, you think of, like, some of the greats that have been sampled for years, like the Stevie Wonders and the James Browns, and just for music to have evolved to a place where it's like you no longer even have to sample like original records. Like, I can take what I would do on a record with no music, and then they can chop that, flip it just like a sample, and it end up being, you know, contributing the same way to a record. And
it's mind blowing, man. Music, man, is just amazing in itself.
Yeah, man, 100%. Because I know that whenever I'm like trying to dissect what it is that Playboi Carti is doing at this point in time, I'm like, first of all, I don't know where this voice came from, but second of all, like, how does this beat, like, what is happening right now? Like, it's right. It's so much that's happening. But next we got up. You worked with Macklemore as well, correct?
Yeah, it was similar situation. Not one of the records, my voice was sampled again by Jake One, but another one, the songs I wrote the hook for. So that situation happened kind of randomly. I was back in town working on my Never See EP, and a homegirl of mine I hadn't seen in a minute happened to be at the same studio I was working at. We ran into each other in the elevator on the way to the restroom. And she happened to be there with Macklemore's godbrother, who I didn't know was his godbrother at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I just invited her into the space I was working in to listen to the records I had recorded thus far. And in listening, he heard some of the joints and was like, "This is you singing?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Well, my brother is trying to finish up a record for his album, and we're waiting on a different hook for it, but I think that your voice would kind of be better for it." And I was like, "Who's your godbrother?" And he was like, "Macklemore." And I was like, "Really?" Because he was a black, he was a black dude too. So I was like, "Huh?" Really?
Yeah. He was like, "Wait a minute, what's happening?"
Yeah.
Here, bro?
And then he was like, "I got the song right here." He played me the song. It already had Macklemore's verses on it, and he was like, "The only catch is you got about 48 hours to get it done." And I was like, "Oh yeah, there ain't no problem. Yeah." So I ended up sending 3 different versions. By the morning.
There you go.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure the probability was high.
Right.
And they had just hopped on tour in that 48 hours. So I guess they were planning to a tour. Then the person that they had been waiting for the hook came in, so he was like, "Yeah, we're probably gonna go with the one that they were waiting for." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I get it. I know how it goes." But then, like 2 months later, he hit me again and was like, "Macklemore's been really listening to the version you did, and I'm thinking he likes that one more." And I was like, "Oh, we got a lifeline."
Right. All right. What's going on here?
Right. And then, like a week before the release date, they hit me and said that they wanted to keep my lyrics, but they wanted to put a girl voice on it, but the placement was going to stay. And I was like, man, secure the win. So I got the writing credit for that song. And then that album went gold. So, man, blessings.
Man, that's so dope to hear. Good stuff, man.
Yeah, man.
I love the aspect of you being like, "Look, bro, I'm finna increase my chances. Here go 3 different versions, bro.
Right.
Just to be sure y'all use something, right? Whichever y'all need, whatever mood you in. That's amazing, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then we got to ask about, the big two, Anderson Paak and Dr. Dre, bro. Like, well, come on now.
Man, listen, that was a life-changing experience. Now, that I actually got to be in the studio with them.
Oh, what?
Yeah, man. Mind-blowing, bro. Like, I was back home working on my EP, and it was, like, random. I got reached out to by a producer that claimed that he was working with Anderson Paak on this album at the time. He didn't know that we had ways to verify if that was true or not. So... Big Pooh is cool or was friends with the old A&R, head A&R of Aftermath. And so he reached out to him, gave him the guy's name and kind of confirmed. It ended up not being true.
Of course.
But in that conversation, the A&R was asking about me. He was like, "Yeah, what's Blakk Soul been working on?" And he was like, "Well, actually, he just got the Macklemore placement. He's working on his EP back home, and he asked him to send him 3 of my strongest records because he wanted to play them for Dre and see what he thought about them." And he said Pooh said he had hit him back in like 2 hours and was like, "Dre loves the records and he wants him to come to the studio." And I was like, "What?" And I was on the first thing smoking back to LA. I was on ice for a little bit because when I got into town, Dre had went on vacation. So I was like, okay, well, shit, I'm here now. I'll wait.
Right. No worries.
Yeah, take my time.
You know?
So I happened to be at the homie's house, my boy Mel, who's actually one of the producers over at Aftermath, and my other bro Pender, and we were just over there brainstorming, coming up with some ideas on a record, and they got called into the studio. So the A&R had asked them who they were with, and Pender was like, yeah, Blakk Soul's here with us too. A&R was like, perfect, bring him up. And I was like, oh shit, This is it. They're like, yeah, you know, Dre might come in, he might not, but you know, just be prepared. And I'm like, all right. As I walk in the front, he's coming in through the back. And I was like, oh, it's Dr. Dre. This is nuts. And then they introduced me as a writer to him. And he's like, oh, you write? I'm like, yeah, I do a little writing. And he was like, cool, we gonna see tonight. And then just walks off. And I was like, oh, now I had heard about, you know, like the infamous hot seat, you know, with Dre. Like I had watched like Kendrick interviews and 50 Cent interviews and whatnot, Bilal, and they all talk about being thrown in that hot seat and kind of got to create something impromptu. Who would have thought that would have been my same experience that night?
Yo,
that's exactly what it turned into.
I'm sure there's some people out there that don't understand what it is that you mean. Please let them know, bro. They need to know this story, dog. Come on.
Yeah. So basically, when I walked in the room, you know, it was like a room filled up with a bunch of dope creators. They're already working on something, and it was time to try to build a song from scratch. And so, you know, Dre was applying pressure to me, kept mugging me, but I was like, I don't know what's going on. Did I do something to offend him? Like, I don't get it. Is he just trying to apply pressure to me or what? Mm-hmm. And he was like, I know what everybody else in here sounds like. I want to hear what you sound like. And so now I'm scrambling through my laptop like, okay, now it's all about finding the right songs to play for the moment. So, you know, if anybody knows anything about Dr. Dre's production, it's always about hard-hitting drums. He wants the drums crispy, so I'm trying to go through the records. I'm an R&B singer, but I'm trying to find the ones where the drums is hitting the hardest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, hold on. Can you say that one more time? You cut out real brief right after that.
I said, if anybody that knows anything about Dr. Dre's production is that, you know, his drums are always crazy, always for the hard-hitting drums. And so me being an R&B singer, I'm trying to find my records that I know got the hardest-hitting drums. So
For sure.
I'm playing records, and he's, like, stopping them, like, a minute or so in, like, okay, I know what you sound like. And then they go back to the joint. So I'm like, dang, is that a bad song? Like, is he not rocking with her or what? But he's still looking at me. So I'm like sweating, like, woo, let's get out of here, man. So they finished arranging the record and make space for a singer. And then he was like, what's up, man? Are you here to hang out or are you working? And I was like, I'm working. And so he was like, it's a hot mic. I go up to the mic. He was like, yeah, do you like to stand up, record, or sit down? I said, it doesn't really matter. Like, I could stand up. He was like, cool, sit down. I was like, man, it's funny talking about the story now because during the moment I'm just like, wow, this is like everything I heard about. This is crazy. And so we ended up having to build a song from scratch. And afterwards, man, I got invited back, and man, I ended up rocking over there for like a year and a half, and learning how to mix. He taught me how to mix on the SSL board. Like, man, I really got a master class in song creation, like the song creative process, and like everything that I thought I knew or as efficient as I thought I was kind of went out the window. You know what I mean? Like being over there, I really learned a whole lot, man. I'm thankful for that experience.
Man, that's incredible, man. That's incredible.
Yeah, man. It was a life-changing experience, something I'm always going to remember. And how that translated into the Anderson Paak situation was Anderson Paak happened to pop in the room while I was in my hot seat experience. Because this was during the time that he was working on the Oxnard album.
Okay.
So then just going back to, after we made that connection, made that rapport, going in and just creating references, trying to pitch for songs. One of the hooks that I did, he loved. And, Dre played it for him over and over again. He rocked with it and then ended up wanting it for the album. And so I think it might have been a month before it came out. And then Dre walked up on me in the kitchen and was like, I'm going to do a verse of that joint tonight. And I was like, what?
Yo.
And so it ended up featuring him and Coco Sarai on the record. And, like, my mind was just blown. I was sitting in the kitchen like, I'm going to have a Dr. Dre Anderson Paak record? Like, is this real life? All at the same time? Like, that's crazy. Never anticipated.
Man, that's a legendary story right there. So I got to follow up and ask you, how do you think that little kid that was nervous going into the church would feel knowing that you got to do this?
I think he would feel like it was necessary and it was worth it.
There you go. There you go. For sure. Oh man, that's incredible, man! Congratulations on that. I'm happy just like hearing you retell the story, like me imagining it in my head, like, bro, this is crazy. Oh
yeah, it was nuts, man. Like that whole, I don't even think I went to sleep like that next day, like because we were in the studio. We probably got to the studio like around 6 that night. Didn't leave until like 6 in the morning, and after that, I was just up. Calling everybody like, y'all won't believe who I was in the studio with last night. I'm calling all my boys back home like, bruh.
You got to. You're like, bro, I was in the studio with Dr. Dre, dog. Like, somebody here might need to hear this story, bro.
Yeah, I was like, this is crazy. And then once the song actually came out and it was like solidified, and I could, because, while you're going through the process, you can't really talk about anything. But then, like, once the song came out, like, people could see the credits, and I was like, man, this is a real thing now. Like, that's, man.
Man, congratulations on that one more time, bro, because that's incredible. That is amazing.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Of course, for sure. Now, last thing I do want to ask you, and that I always ask every guest that comes onto the show or to the podcast that works on music, is the music guys, even though you got to talk to one of them already, work with them, write for them, all of that stuff. If the music guys came down and said, hey, we'll give you any 3 people to produce and feature on an album that you're doing, who would they be? Now, you get 3 people that can produce on it and 3 people that you can feature on it. Who would they be? So you got your pick of the litter, dead or alive. They come in like, bro, whatever you want, whatever you need, we can make it happen. Who are those people?
Okay, 3 people to produce on it? Pharrell?
Ooh, okay.
Brian Michael Cox.
Nice.
Who would be my third? I got like 4 people in my mind right now. I'm trying to figure out which would be the one. Quincy Jones.
Oh, incredible.
That would be crazy, And then the feature on it, Marvin Gaye.
Nice.
Teddy Pendergrass.
Oh, okay. I see where we're going with this. Okay.
Yeah. It's gonna be one of them, one of them ones.
Yeah.
And for the last person, I would want to do a duet with Marsha Ambrosius.
Oh, that would be incredible,
man. Yeah. Oh, that would be the squad. Boy, that would be crazy. That would be next level.
That would be. All right. Then we gotta see what we can make happen out of this. Now that we can put it out into the universe, come on now.
Right. How can we get it this close?
Right.
Let's
go ahead and have that energy just work back around on it. Man, can you please tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
Man, I try to make it easy. It's Blakk Soul Music. That's BLAKK Soul Music. It's the same on all my social media platforms. I try to make it easy, one-stop shop. Nothing too complicated.
Perfect, man. Perfect. Everybody, please make sure to go ahead and follow Blakk Soul everywhere that you possibly can on social media, and make sure that you do not take your time going to listen to his album. Take your time. Go listen to that as much as you can, man. Let's stream it all the way up because it is a great album, and we're so glad that you were able to come on the show with us today and talk about it and your journey, man. Thank you.
Man, thank you for having me, man. I'm very appreciative of it, man. Thank you.
No problem, man. Whenever you find yourself back here in New York, once all this is over with, you got to come by the studio so that way we can meet in person and also chop it up on air.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah, I can't wait.
Yo, I definitely have to say thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Remember, please to subscribe to the podcast, wherever it is that you're listening to it, so that way you can get more of this as I begin to put it out. It's a lot for me to be able to record these, go and write up about them, go and edit them. All of it, takes a lot out of me to be able to do it. So anything that you can do to contribute to help out, whether that's sharing, whether that's rating, whether that's reviewing, whether that's subscribing, whether that's joining a Patreon, subscribing to the YouTube, following on social media, all of that goes to help me out tremendously. Thank you so very much. All right, man. Hope you have a great day. Stay blessed, stay favored. Always stay tailored. If you got a dream, see it through. And I'll see you soon. Peace and love.